And welcome back to the Pitch Side podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of this podcast, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Enable notifications to receive all the updates from these podcast episodes and all the content on the channel. Of course, follow us on social media. I'm at PSP on Twitter, Pitch Side Pod on Instagram, and listen to these podcast episodes on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other platform. Join us for more. This is episode 139. You're welcome. Yesterday, it was, of course, the second match of the semi-finals of the Champions League. We could not start anywhere but there. It was PSG hosting Manchester City, and this was, it was a pretty cagey game in comparison to what we expected. Let's be fair about it. Let's be truly, honest about it, brutally honest about it. This game was cagier than we expected in comparison to what we thought would be a pretty, a pretty high-octane game or a basketball, football kind of game. It wasn't that, but it was pretty entertaining and pretty interesting from both sides. And Pep Guardiola didn't overthink it for once. He didn't really philosophize the matter, didn't try to do a weird substitution or a weird positional change that wasn't needed. They played the normal way, played the way that he should play all the time. PSG, I thought, played a high game in the first 30 minutes. I mean, the start of the game really gave me the vibe that PSG were going to be dominating the game, are going to be putting Man City under pressure for the whole game and trying to pin them in the back and try to not allow them to get out of the back, smoothly as they usually do. Try to hit them with the speed and pace and trickery of Mbappe and Neymar and Di Maria and all of that. And certainly for the first 15-20 minutes, it looked like Man City were lost in the game at a certain point. PSG, of course, set up in their 4-3-3, which defensively transforms into a 4-4-2. But Di Maria, I think, was really good. Cancelo and Walker had a bit of problems in the earlier goings of the game, of course. With PSG, playing high and pressing with intensity. Leandro Paredes and Idrissa Gana Gueye really been tremendous in pressing early goings of the game. But definitely, Man City, I don't know, they looked like they wanted to let PSG control the game at the early going. Maybe it is by design, I don't really know, but I don't think it was that good of a start from them. They had a couple of mistakes early on, and of course PSG's goal was a huge marking mistake from Man City's defence, which I think creeps in as of late in the Premier League and all the other competitions. They don't deal well with crosses. Sometimes they don't deal well with set pieces, really. The marking was really bad. The zonal marking, I really hate it in football. The zonal marking, for some reason, most teams do not apply it the right way, and certainly this was not a case of applying it the right way. This was a case of applying it the wrong way. Marquinhos was left free to leap and jump all over the defence and to cut in and score his goal inside 15 minutes. It was a crucial time for a goal, and we thought that, PSG are going to be sitting deep and playing on the counter. There was no real way that they're going to be continuing with that kind of way for the whole game, because that is not what they do, and I don't think they have the physical endurance in them to do so. After the 30-minute mark, I would say Man City started to control the game a little bit more. They started pinning PSG. We started seeing the 4-4-2 transformation from PSG with Di Maria supporting the right back and creating blocks. But definitely, it felt like PSG's level of physicality, it felt like their stamina has dropped off significantly after the 30-minute mark, which is surprising. How a team can physically collapse after 30 minutes is really unknown to me. I don't really understand how PSG really, they completely collapse after 30 minutes. It is weird, but it's understandable as well, I would say. We saw, I think, the same thing in the games against Barcelona, against Bayern, and particularly against Bayern, like the high pressing of Bayern, the fact that you don't have the ball for most of the game, exhaust them physically as much as their system or their setup is intended to play on the counter and play on the fast break. City didn't create a lot. PSG created a couple of chances they could have scored really in the first half. They were the most dangerous side by far in the first half. In the second half, it was clearly that they wanted to just defend their lead and play the counter-attack, try to sting PSG with another goal, but they can't do that. I think the composure in the middle of the park was lacking from PSG. Yes, I mean, Idrissa Gana Gueye and Paredes had a great first half, but I don't think they had the best second halves. And they were giving the ball away, I thought, in the middle of the park. They didn't have, enough in them to get it out from the back and to start attacks from PSG. They didn't find their rhythm anymore. And Man City were in the driving seat for the whole second half. Yes, the two goals were pretty lucky, and particularly the first goal, I would say, it came down to how Keylor Navas, estimated the ball. He didn't read the play really well. Certainly, this was the kind of cross that any player from Man City would have scored if he touched it with his head, but definitely it was a mistake from Keylor Navas. I mean, De Bruyne obviously intended to cross. That was not intended to shoot at all, absolutely. But, Keylor Navas didn't deal with it well. And that was the goal scored. I think that goal and the way it was scored maybe played mentally into PSG and mentally into Navas, because the team afterwards was not the same. Like, they were holding themselves pretty well prior to that first goal, even with City having more control of the game and having more possession. I thought PSG were holding themselves really well before that goal, but once that goal was in with that way, I definitely thought it will not be the same game anymore, and it will not be the same state of mentality anymore. Man City didn't create, but they scored twice, and the second goal was even more. It was weirder. It was a mistake from the ball and Keylor Navas. It becomes a theme in Europe, I think, to set up the wall badly in the set pieces. I mean, just ask Juventus about it. They do it all the time. The wall was set badly. I thought it was easy to understand that they didn't want to concede a penalty because they were standing in the penalty box. They didn't want the ball to hit them in the arm and concede a penalty because these things are pretty scrutinized now with VAR and all of that. So I don't know what they do. They maybe ducked in at the same time and let the ball, pass behind them. Keylor Navas was not in the best positioning for the set piece, really. He was a little bit too central, I would say, and the ball took him by surprise. It was a couple mistakes between him and the ball. And once the second goal got in, you added that the red card, Idrissa Gana Gueye sent off for a very ridiculous challenge. I mean, that is a career-ending challenge at certain points. I don't know how Gundogan completed the game and wasn't subbed off straight afterwards. It's absolutely tremendous. Out of the red card, you know that the game was going one way, really, and you know that City are going to be controlling the game and they will try to see off the game. The only thing is that they didn't kill it off. And we know that the second leg would be really intriguing since they didn't do that, because PSG, they are the ones that are going to be looking for the game. They're going to be the ones running for the score instead of what happened against Barcelona, against Bayern Munich in the previous round, where the opposition is running behind the game. But I think the biggest advantage in that situation was the fact that they won away from home. They don't have that advantage here. We will see if Man City are going to be, sitting deep or playing the same game. Because if they play the same game, I think they don't have any, PSG that is, they don't have any chance of winning or going through. Because if they play the same game, in my opinion, I don't see City losing it. I don't see City collapsing, really. But again, the record for PSG away this season in the Champions League is really good. They defeated United, they defeated Barcelona, they defeated Bayern Munich away from home. So you cannot be really surprised if they, if they go out and beat City away from home 2-0. We saw City lose at home for sure. That is not surprising as well for them. But definitely the intrigue about this game is whether PSG are going to go for it, are going to be playing high, or they're just going to wait for City. I mean, it's going to be interesting because City will be absolutely realistic, pragmatic. They will need the most minimum of scores, I think, in this semi-final. And definitely PSG are the ones demanded with going for the game and going for the kill and trying to make a scoreline away from home to qualify. I'm not going to give a prediction yet. When we review the second leg, I'm going to be giving a prediction, but I think for now, I'm going to be sitting on the edges, sitting on the fence here, and saying that the game is still pretty much 50-50, just like the first semi-final between Real Madrid and Chelsea. Enough of the Champions League, and let's talk about the Europa League now, the bigger competition, of course, of the two. That's a sarcastic comment, if you didn't realise it. I don't need to remind people of that, but I feel like I have to. It is, of course, the semi-final stage of that competition, and we have two matches on the day: Manchester United versus Roma and Villareal versus Arsenal. Let's start talking about Man United versus Roma, of course. This is a game that certainly looks unbalanced and certainly looks in the favour of one team over the other. I mean, you have to be lying if you're telling me that Roma stand a chance, or that Roma are on equal footing with United when it comes to qualifying, really. Because, I mean, if Roma were playing on their early form of the season and United were playing on their early form of the season, I would say it's a 50-50 and even probably could edge Roma to go through, because they would have a stern defence back then and they would have a very threatening attack with Nicolo Zaniolo and all of that. After the injury for Zaniolo, I think Roma lacked a lot of dynamism up front, and they started dwindling in their form. They started becoming more defensive. Paulo Fonseca, who was really, being brilliant at one point of the season, Paulo Fonseca, I thought he was definitely, getting the worst of the. He was getting the worst luck of the draw, I would say, from the performances that he has with Roma. The defense have been catastrophic as of late, giving too many goals, and the mistakes that they make during the game, of course, are really apparent for everyone to see. Their season went on from being close to competing for the title as well, to being in the top four, to being outside the top four now. And they're getting, the difference between them and the gap between them and the other teams in the top four, in the likes of Juve and Atalanta and Napoli in Italy, is getting bigger and bigger by the day. And you really feel sorry for them, because this might be a disastrous match for Roma. This might be the finale for Roma's season that they don't want to see for Paulo Fonseca, because of reports suggesting that Maurizio Sarri is in talks and holding talks with Roma, or Roma holding talks with Maurizio Sarri, looking to appoint him as the next coach for the club, which is understandable. I would say why they would want Sarri, because like it or don't like it, he is an attacking coach more than Paulo Fonseca, who sort of became defensive as the season wore on, really. We didn't see Roma in attack anymore. We see them pinned in the back, basically against any opponent. You saw them against Torino playing, defensively and playing on the back foot. We saw them against Cagliari playing that way. So you'll not really be surprised if you see, if you're going to be seeing him, or you see Roma playing in the back against United, because that is what's going to be the case. That's going to be the game. The game is played in Old Trafford, and that is what Roma is going to be doing. They will try to, get the best result they can, which, in their opinion, would be probably a draw, maybe, or even a 1-1 draw, maybe a goal draw, a goal-full draw, not a goalless draw, would be really good for Roma. But I don't think that will happen. Over the two legs, I think United should have really enough quality in them to just beat them, the players that they have. And with the season United are having, really, in comparison to Roma, is pretty terrific. I think they have their second place in the league, pretty untouchable. Although, there's the big consideration that there's a game against Liverpool they want to look at. Whatever the situation is, the game is going to be important for Liverpool, so that might be a taxing game on Sunday. That might be a taxing week for United, taxing weekend against Liverpool. So maybe the game against Roma wouldn't take too much focus. But on the same token, United need a trophy, and this game and the Europa League as a whole should provide him with a trophy. I mean, I think they are the favourites to win the competition. I said it since the last 16, really, that tournament. I think United are the favourites to win. I don't see any team of the other three getting even close to their level, really. And yes, we're not judging on we're judging on a curve here, because the Europa League this season, I mean, it's not that strong. I mean, last season was better. We saw Leverkusen, we saw Sevilla, we saw Wolves, we saw Inter, in the competition. This season, it's a pretty weird competition. With the Leicesters and the Slavia Pragues and Rangers and all of that. So you have to be really asking yourself if United are going to be distributing their effort between this game and the Liverpool game on Sunday, or they will, focus on this game as it is a closer title to them than the Premier League would be, or trying to not give importance to the game against Liverpool just because they play for a trophy here. So it's all about the priorities, I think, for United. But definitely, I can see them favourites. I can see him winning probably both home and away, and by a comfortable score, I think, on both sides. So it will be quite a disastrous end of the season for Roma. It pains me to see them that way, because I saw them in the early goings of the season. I was impressed with their form, impressed with their way. They were efficient up front, and the way they were pretty solid at the back for the early goings. They had a really good campaign, I thought. In the Europa League so far, they were really decent in the group stages. They were solid in the back, but then they barely escaped in the knockout rounds, and particularly against Ajax in the previous round, they barely escaped qualification, and they almost really went out of the competition altogether. So in my opinion, I don't have any doubts really that United are favourites in this one, and that this game will definitely go their way, I think, in both legs. I don't really see Roma doing anything significant, and we'll see if Man United... we'll see if Man United can bottle it. I don't think they will do, so I really see Man United in the final. For the other semi-final, though, we can't really say that it is a one-sided affair. It doesn't really look so. It's Villareal versus Arsenal. The first game is going to be played in Spain, of course, and let's be fair. The Spanish side looks the better, in my opinion. I know that Arsenal done really well in the competition, and I think this is their only meal ticket for Europe this season. There's their only hope that they do reach Europe this season is the Europa League. They're out of both cup competitions in England. They're pretty far in the league from top 4, from top 6 spots, so you could not really expect them to be in Europe. The final is between Leicester City and Chelsea, both top 4 sides. They might end up both in Champions League places, so there's not even a chance for them to get into the competition because a side that is, say, 5th or 6th won the FA Cup. So Arsenal's meal ticket for Europe this season, next season that is the Europa League. So they're going heather and yon to win it. Even ignoring the league games for Arsenal, I think, knowing that it's done and dusted, they don't have any chance to go in top 4 or top 6, they realise they were playing all for the Europa League, all but for the Europa League. For Villareal, they had a decent season in Spain, and they were a pretty poised team. They're really, really poised team. They played really well, they played really composed, and they have the talent up front to really be deadly and to be really annoying for Arsenal, who we saw them as inconsistent as they could be. We saw the early form of the season, which were horrific, and we almost thought that Arsenal were going to be relegated. At a certain point, that was not a true idea, but it was almost a true vision, or a true sort of scenario that could have happened to Arsenal this season to play for relegation. But obviously they saved themselves, and they played really better since the turn of the year, but as of late, they're starting to drop back to inconsistency once more, and to drop back to the mediocrity they've been playing with for most of the season, for most of the last, let's say, 3 seasons since Wenger left. So they are really inconsistent. They don't have a proper identity about them. You don't feel that there is a true style for Arsenal this season, or the other seasons since Wenger left, really. They play once the 4-2-3-1, the 4-3-3. They play once mostly with 3 at the back and 4-2-1 or 3-4-3, that is. But still, there's no lack of identity, no real style about them. You don't know what Arsenal style is going to be like this season. They have youngsters, they have amazing youngsters who are really driving the squad forward and leading the squad forward. And I was really surprised by the fact that them showing a bigger drive than what most of the senior players in that club are doing. The likes of Saka and Smith Rowe and Martinelli really being on fire this season compared to the other players. It's given Arsenal fans hope this season, and they've been tremendous in the Europa League. Let's be fair, they've been tremendous in the Europa League. They only lost once to Olympiacos and they almost looked out of it against Olympiacos, but definitely they held on. So they're really tremendous in the campaign altogether, but their form is inconsistent in the league. So it doesn't fill them with the hope, it doesn't fill the fans with the hope that they would want to ahead of a big game like this, a crucial semi-final like this, where again, it's Arsenal's only chance to go to Europe next season is by going through the Europa League process and by winning the competition. I really feel that the first game is going to define a lot of things. If Arsenal can hold themselves and can pull it through against Villareal, they would qualify. If they don't, I would say Villarreal will be in the final, and I mean, overall, I lean towards Villarreal. Again, they're a much more poised team, they're much more potent, they have more threat going forward, they really have the players that could, sting, it could hurt Arsenal as they wanted to. It definitely is a question of whether Arteta is going to be closing down and playing in the right way possible and, capitalizing on his strong points rather than trying to think of how to stop Villarreal. Because Villarreal are really potent, they're really composed, they get the ball out from the back pretty well, they can play long if they wanted to, although they don't have a focal point of a striker to play on, that kind of thing. Gerard Moreno is not necessarily a number 9, but still plays as a number 9, is really good at it, by the way, this season. He's one of the best players in the league. In Spain, is underrated, I would say. Samuel Chukwueze is a dangerous winger that could provide a lot of help, and they have the players and they have the good cast all around them in the middle of the park and the defense to just make a good squad that could cause trouble to any team. So I think it's going to come down to the fact, come down to whether Arsenal are going to be holding themselves during the first leg or not, whether, they would sort of not allow Villarreal the spaces that they want to play behind them and to have the runs that they do with Moreno and Chukwueze in particular up front, or not. It will depend, it will come down to Arsenal's defensive solidity against Villarreal's attacking prowess and attacking sting. As far as predictions are concerned, I really lean towards Villarreal going through on both ties. Arsenal have a chance. I think it's 60-40 maybe in favour of Villarreal. I don't think there is much of a difference really, but as a composed team again, a more consistent team, I would say Villarreal will go through over the two legs, but just about, I would say, over Arsenal. That's it from me for this episode. I was with HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of this podcast, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Enable notifications to receive all the updates from these episodes, which you can listen to on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other platform. Follow social media site PSP on Twitter, page site on Instagram. And until next time, and until tomorrow's episode, the preview of the weekend, I'll see you soon.